I have to say this has been a fascinating day and a fascinating discussion that we've just had from our presenters. Before I begin my remarks, there are actually two things I want to say, having listened to what's been said today. The first is to our colleagues from Karelia, and it's this. I noticed when you put the pictures up of those who'd been affected by the pressure that's being put on your members at elected level, that of the 7 photographs, 6 were of women. That said something to me about the kind of pressure that is being applied to women in your part of Russia, even now, and what great courage it must take to stand up to that pressure, and not only to seek to oppose it, but to be elected and fight for others so that they don't experience the same pressure. And I want to say on behalf of Liberals everywhere, thank you for what you've done, and thank you for what your colleagues do, because it takes an enormous amount of courage, of bravery, to fight the kind of oppression that you're suffering. And the second area I'd like to cover is really, I suppose it's a confession, because in the United Kingdom, we have just been through an election. And in our election, my party expected to lose some seats because we had been in coalition government. Actually, we lost all but 8 of our seats. And there was not a single female member of Parliament re-elected. There was not a single member of Parliament elected for our party that was female. So in the House of Commons, the elected chamber now, all we have are 8 men. That gives us, as you can imagine, an enormous problem. And it has to be said that our party has always been reluctant to look at things such as quotas. And I heard what you said about quotas. I think that without a system that will begin to address the problems we have, and that will include quotas, that women are going to find it increasingly difficult to become elected. I was really pleased to hear about the success in Denmark. We were given the vote in 1919 in the United Kingdom. Well, no, not all women. Some were given the vote in 1919. All women were given the vote in 1928. In 1919, our first woman MP was elected, Lady Nancy Astor, who took her seat in the House of Commons. And at the present rate, it will take us, the mother of parliaments, till 2095 to achieve parity. So when you're looking at your situation here in Russia, just remember that your situation in Russia is not unusual. It is being repeated over and over and over again, right around the world. There's been a very interesting piece of work done in relation to Europe by the European Institute for Gender Equality. And I think if you get the opportunity, although these papers are not published in Russian, they are published in every European language for the European Union and for the European Economic Area. And that organisation has an enormous amount of research it has done looking at the barriers that women face when seeking to become elected and indeed seeking to take their place within the political structure. And part of the problems that we have actually can be summarised in 4 words, some of which have been looked at today, but I would like to look at them a little differently. The first is culture. And the culture that it speaks about is not just a culture between men and women. It's the culture in the entire society. It's what everybody in society expects. What do we expect of women? We expect women will stay at home, largely, will do the housework, look after the children, or even as they get older, look after aged relatives. I'm not quite there yet, but it will be there before long. However, I think that if we are serious about wanting to have women actively engaged in politics and in decision-making, and actually in the economy too, there have to be mechanisms which enable that to happen. In many countries, that is not going on. And wherever I've been over the last 3 years in Europe, the message has been the same. Women are turning away from politics because they don't see it has anything to do with them. And the professor made mention of what happens when women get into politics and get into elected office, that they actually become more like the alpha male and less like the women that they are. In the United Kingdom, of course, that happened with Margaret Thatcher, who became Prime Minister, fought a war, which actually it was her fault in the first place, but fought a war, and then refused to have women in her cabinet, and then did not promote women. She became the person in the tank with the flowing headscarf, you may remember. That is not the way women want to see politics. They want to see politics as offering solutions to problems, not as being grandstanding. And so, when we look at the barriers, culture is one. Childcare, and this has been mentioned indeed by a number of speakers today, is another. If we don't have affordable childcare, women cannot meet what they wish to do in relation to their own abilities going forward into politics or the economy. It simply cannot happen. The third is cash. Standing for elected office costs money. It may be that you pay your relative to come and look after your children. It may be that because you're standing as a candidate, you want something nice to wear. It may be that you have to travel to where you're standing for office. All of those things mitigate against women standing. Simply because, for many women, especially those who have family responsibilities or who are not in employment, then they have a choice. Do I pay my bills or do I become a politician? Do I see my children have presents for their birthdays, or do I become a politician? And the choice can be that stark for women who are not highly paid professionals. The third issue is confidence. Many women simply lack the confidence to do it. They will have been in situations where they'll have been put down by a man. They'll have been told, for goodness sake, why are we listening to you? In fact, I was in Croatia, and I was at a party meeting where one of our representatives in Croatia actually told me she had stood at a council meeting locally where she was elected a councillor, and she began to ask questions about something that was a little bit, and the politician in the ruling group said to her, "Oh, sit down, you're only interested in clothes and in being fashionable. Sit down, dear." Well, that's not the way that you address an elected representative. But that was what was being done to the women in that area. And so when women are attacked like that, it takes a certain kind of woman not to just pack up and go home. A certain kind of woman who'll say, "Hang on a minute, I'm not taking that from you. I'm going to do what's right." And if you're a new candidate seeking to do that, then the position is very, very much worse. Because it doesn't just happen outside, it happens inside political parties too. And I couldn't be more proud of Jabloko. Actually having, I beg your pardon, have I said something wrong? No? Okay. Having its own gender equality faction within the party, and being the only party in Russia to have that. Because what that does is enable women to come to meetings, to feel part of a group, and to know that they will be helped, empowered, and enabled to take an active part in politics. That is something which many, many parties don't do. And I'm afraid to say, particularly in areas such as the Balkans, it becomes very difficult for women to take an active role in politics. So what can be done about all this? What can be done about it? There are mechanisms, and I know a colleague from Denmark does not wish, from Finland does not wish us actually to have quotas. But there are a number of things that we can do as politicians and within parties. The first is that we can train women. We can give them the confidence of learning how to do things within our parties. The second is that we can provide real role models. You did that just recently, showing our 2 presidents. The third is that we can actually provide mentors for women, and for young women too, who want to get involved in politics but actually don't really know the steps to take. The fourth is to do something as simple as a telephone circle, where one of our young women who might want to take a part in politics but perhaps is away at a university or working might just want to pick the phone up and speak to somebody she knows will understand the problem that she has. And something as simple as that works very well. But we can also help women by providing other assistance. And that other assistance is things like helping with childcare, forming a group that will actually go and sit with somebody's children while that person is out doing politics, or by helping financially. Now, these things are not easy for any party, much less a Liberal Party, because we believe that people need to have the opportunity to realise their own potential. But we are in a situation, ladies and gentlemen, where women are not able to do that. And as Liberals, we would recognise that to have a fully equal liberal society, we need to have the mechanisms to create that. As we did when we introduced education for all children. After all, why wouldn't somebody want their child to go to school? They should pay for it, shouldn't they? That's not the decision that was taken by many Liberal governments around the world. It was, you will go to school as a child and you will learn as a child without it costing your parents. Or providing such simple things as libraries to enable people to grow, to read, to have access to books. These are things which we do because we want to create a more equal society. How much more of an equal society could we create if we looked seriously at what we can do to enable women, to empower women, and not just in politics, but in the economy too? Because without that, we are not going to have the sort of liberal society I think we all subscribe to, one where there is equality of opportunity based on the fact that people have an equal chance to move forward in life and to have the ability to serve their fellows. There are a couple of things which, in my party, I hope we will be doing in the next few months. The first is that I have suggested that we should hold a special conference looking at the whole situation of women in our party as we go forward and how we're going to change the way things are. There will be some in our party who will not want that to happen, but I think it will happen. And who will we have to that? Well, yes, we will have our leader and our president. In addition to that, I'm going to invite Eva Biaudet from Finland, the Swedish People's Party, who was the ombudsman for minorities in that country. And she has an excellent breadth of knowledge about this particular area. Secondly, Virginia Langbach, who is the director of the European Institute for Gender Equality. She will be invited. And what we will then seek to do is to examine how a political party, which has just taken such a beating at the polls, has lost all its female representation in the House of Commons, can actually begin to change the way things are for the future, get more women elected, provide more help and empowerment, and actually give our country a better base on which to move forward. Thank you for your attention.